Game on, everybody, and welcome to another Lorcana meta breakdown. Let's go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, I just want to quickly remind everybody that this meta breakdown is essentially split into these different ranges. So if the meta is 32 or more players, I get a top 4 breakdown, and if it breaks the 64 player threshold, I then pull the top 8 results, and that gives us a little bit more, but ideally around like the 10% of top players for those events. And you can see that this is the last time it was updated in the top middle. And if you guys would like to support me and continue doing this weekly, please consider subscribing to this channel to get up to date with a meta breakdown on a weekly basis. And if you guys are interested in seeing this updated daily, this spreadsheet is available for everybody to use. You can easily access it on my Patreon for free, and you can also find this on my Discord and on my Twitter. So let's go ahead and go into the breakdown. So this is currently what the breakdown is for this current format. We have the all top cut for basically that. This is all the decks that are showing representation across no matter the size of the tournament. And I feel like that data is just very important to have. Let me just move that up a little bit. So yeah, this is what we currently have. But in my strong opinion, like I do see a lot of Amber Steel players, or at least that is like the most represented deck in the format. And rightfully so, because I personally think it's the best deck in the format. But it does have some weaknesses when it comes to Sapphire in general. And if you look at the larger size tournaments, we can see that Ruby Sapphire is actually the more represented deck, following Amber Steel, and then right behind that is Ruby Amethyst. And rightfully so, because those are definitely the most strongest decks in the meta. And I have some other examples of decks for you that I'm just going to update for you guys in regards to the weekly trends and such. So let's go ahead and pull some lists. Before we go deep into the deck list, though, I do want to give a quick shout out and say thank you to all my Patreon subscribers. I greatly appreciate all the support. And if you guys are considering joining, you guys are more than welcome to kind of get up to date and continue supporting my journey. But at the bare minimum, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing on this video. So then that way we can go ahead and those little interactions really do help me in the long way. Or consider using my TCG Player affiliate link in the description box below. All your transactions, a little bit of the piece of the pie goes towards me as a support at no extra cost to you. So I just want to say thank you. But let's go ahead and move on to the first deck. And of course, the first deck we have to talk about is Decandio's Steelsong deck. I love this color. I love this deck. It's great. My list is so close to this, and I just want to kind of give some notice on here. So this is not technically correct. This has 62 cards in here. It's actually a 60 card list, and the correction is one less Smee and one less Ursula Vanessa. And this is an overall great meta pick. He has a full breakdown on his Patreon, so if you guys are interested in getting the mindset as to what he has to say for this deck, I strongly suggest you go check that out if you want to get some pro player insight. I really can't give any additional notes. I would love to give some insight as to what my deck kind of personally is. I'm not running Lantern in mind, but he has a great reason as to why he's running Lantern, but I don't typically want to spoil it. I just would suggest you go ahead and check out what he has to say regarding that. But I can provide some insight as to what my list kind of currently has. And so my list, I love Steel Flute. Or this Sleepy's Flute. It's just one of the best like cards in the game, in the sense of just like Ruby Amethyst is one of the most represented decks in the meta, and that is just a card that kind of clears that strategy to kind of eke out that little bit of lore that you might need just to win the game. We can see that this deck is playing a much more aggro style, and rightfully so. I think like when you play against any Sapphire deck, you kind of need those aggro answers to basically clear the board, and this is a great meta pick overall. In my list, I'm actually running 2 Cinderellas in set 3 because I didn't play this deck in set 4. I was running 3 Cinderellas, but now I'm running 2 because I really like the Aerial Sonic Warrior as a one-of tech, and I just think that it kind of has a neat little interaction or place, and it gives an extra kind of like toolkit. I feel like it's her time to finally shine. Some other things that I don't run is I run 3 Naveen's, and that's just based off my unequal ratio. Naveen isn't really one of those like core cards to the strategy. It is great, but when I do a whole new world combo, I prefer to always sing it, because then I have 5 ink at my disposal, or 4 ink I guess, at my disposal to then follow up And if you play Naveen on turn, well, in this case, it'd probably be turn 3, but if you play Naveen turn 4 to play a whole new world for free, it's still a great interaction because it plays within on curve, but then you just expended 4 ink to play Naveen, play a whole new world, get a brand new hand, but you have no more ink exerted to play with him, or to play off this new hand, giving your opponent like the first play. And I like the 3 of Naveen. I've seen some decks run 2. I still think he's really good to not play less than 3, but that is all up to each player's interpretation. Also, this deck list playing 4 Rapunzel. I personally like to run 3 just because, like, even though there is synergy with Mr. Smee, a good player doesn't really give you the best interaction to kind of follow up, and you don't get many of those opportunities to punish your opponent. But 3 copies of a card is like a really solid choice to have in your deck. I think I'm also playing 3. Well, no, I know I'm playing 3. Pete's Game Referee, and it's mostly just kind of like a timing thing. Some cards I'm including that isn't in this list is Grab Your Sword. I'm personally playing 3. I don't know if 3 is overkill, but I do like Grab Your Sword as just like, it's a card that always has to be like respected, and if your opponent ends up dumping their whole hand because they're assuming you have a whole new world coming up, you just punish them with a Grab Your Sword instead off of Naveen, and that's very satisfying overall. But we'll go ahead and move on to the next deck list. We have a Ruby Amethyst list here, and this one of course features Ice Block and Sisu. Nothing really too crazy notable to kind of go over here. I would say that playing the 3-drop small Sisu with Evasive is a great card. And that has to be extremely respected, because if this card is just left standing on the board, the follow-up with the Shift 6 Sisu, the Empowering Sibling, is just very devastating. And if you don't have a way to deal with evasive characters in your deck, that's definitely something that can be very punishing with the follow-up. And having the small Sisu available to clear aggro threats is a great meta pick, and I can definitely see that this will see some play. Notably that they're only playing 2 Brawl within this deck, and that's probably fine. I really like the card, but maybe just favoring the Sisu itself and using Brawl as the 2 of tech card, and Visions of Future being a 4 of in this deck just creates extra consistency on top of the already Hiram and Popsicle combo. But we'll go ahead and move on to a different version of Ruby Sapphire. And we have this Villain Brew that got first place at like a 64-player tournament at the Players Network. And when I first saw this deck, I was like, I don't want to look at this anymore. My brain just couldn't comprehend what it was. It just kind of looked like a bunch of just cards that were pulled together. But then after you kind of notice all the different things, like the keywords, this is very much a villain items deck. I think there's about 20 different items. I didn't actually count it, but a lot of recyclable items within the Sword of Truth and the Poison Apple, because there are villain characters in almost every deck, and there are princess characters in almost every deck, and Prince John being able to exert himself to fetch those items to immediately get value off of it. And this kind of just works. And using the Potion of Might, able to boost all your villain characters by 4, that kind of clears just everything. And it's nothing to not pay attention, like it's nothing to disregard. And I will say, like, all the good blue cards are in here, and like with the Tipo, and now we have with Ramp, and we have Flavisham with Popsicle. Of course, those are all like the bread and butter combos. No Be Prepared, but I guess maybe it's not needed when all your characters can just easily clear, and or you just have your tech item cards that are reusable to basically not only feed with Flavisham, but are returnable with Prince John. So that's basically kind of like a smaller Tamatoa, in the sense of like we can always retrieve 5-cost items and play them for free. And even though that the items come into play exerted, these items don't need to be exerted to be used. So that's also a bonus and benefit. So very interesting deck, and I love to see the creativity behind this. And if you guys have any more interesting decks to send my way, please send them over to me. Let me know how you did in your tournaments and such, and I would love to add it to the spreadsheet and share with others. We're going to move on to Amethyst Ruby here, And I believe most Amethyst Ruby decks are now playing the bigger statted willpower characters for the one drops, and then comboing it off with Flynn and Sisu on the higher end, because the whole Madame Mim and Merlin package is able to kind of get you there, and it kind of like allows you to be the aggressor as far as like lore goes, or the defensive play when you go against the aggro deck, because this deck historically has struggled against aggro decks, and having the 1-3 stat line can help easily clear like 2 to 3 for 1 trades on those aggressive questers and such, in the sense of like Lilo or not Daisy Duck, right? But you can basically trade in all those other little bodies. And then we even have cards like Be King Undisputed as a great option card to each opponent chooses and banishes one of their characters. So that's just a way to get around Ward. And we also have Lady Tremaine in here as another alternative way to get around Ward. I'm not too necessarily sure how relevant Lady Tremaine is, but I do like that this list is playing at least one new card, that being Elsa the Fifth Spirit. Let me just quickly double check. Yeah, that is literally the newest card or a new card from set 5. So not much has changed, and the more things that you realize change, not so much has actually changed. Or what's that saying go? You guys know what I'm talking about. And we're gonna go ahead and talk about Emerald Amethyst now. So this is a list that ended up getting first place. So if you guys are interested in any kind of tempo strategy, this is definitely a more ideal list to kind of like play, where you play into your strong suit. And we can see here that this list is featuring the Clarabelle cards, and we have, like, of course, the Rush Cogsworth as a 2, Lyle Tiberius, that's also another great card, and one Kit Cloud Kicker. That's a very interesting choice. But one card that I do really enjoy is the Emerald Chromacon as a one-of. Like I was saying in last week's video, that if you have room for this card, just play the one, and it is broken. I played it during sealed play, and this just easily won games by itself, and has some really funny interactions. And of course, this deck has a lot of great top end as well, that being Clarabelle and that being Elsa the Fifth Spirit. And interesting to see that Ursula the Sea Witch Queen is in this deck as well, maybe just kind of countering the more prevalent deck of Amber Steel, because that is probably the most represented deck for this format. But this deck is full of a lot of great cards. It's even playing Bonsai, the 3/2 stat stick, that quest for 2 uninkable. I mean, that's a great card. That's overly statted. And in the sense of like how it has the removal in the Mother Gothel package, also great. So really a tempo oriented deck. If you guys like that kind of strategy, I strongly recommend you try this out. Also, wanted to know the Merlin Crab here. Merlin Crab is great this format. A lot of people are favoring really beefy willpower characters, and this just helps you trade efficiently. On to Sapphire Steel. So this is probably a really close build to what the standard is. I'm not too sure about the 3 grabber swords for this list, but I do like that this list has the tech option of the Simba, where it's the shiftable Simba, but of course no shift target in this list here. But on when you play this character, you may banish chosen item or location. So either that could be the Simba or the Cusco, really kind of depends on what flavor you like. Maybe going for this one because of the inkability. I believe, wait, is Cusco inkable? Somebody remind me in the comments. I actually don't recall at this moment. Decks, Sapphire Steel playing the Chien Pao. People are playing this card just because it's a card that has a really decent, or actually overly statted. I'm not a fan of this. I feel like I'd rather just play a different card. But this, you can see this list is back on the Aerial Ward. I think last week when we showed off a Sapphire Steel deck, there was no Ward Aerial. And at the lower end for this deck, we have the Captain Hook and Fire the Cannons. Fire the Cannons has a great interaction with Fishbone Quill, because on turn 3, you can play Fishbone Quill, ink an additional card, and then Fire the Cannons to remove an aggro threat, or a low aggro threat, I guess. When I say aggro threat, I feel like a lot of people maybe only think about Daisy Duck, but realistically all the aggro cards are just one statted willpower cards anyways. But I do like this list. I genuinely do. I'm just not too crazy about Chien Pao, but we're playing some new cards in here, such as Tipo. Of course, we have like the staple of Fortisphere and Popsicles with the Flavisham engine. But maybe I would like to see more Long Cane Zeus, but maybe it's also not super relevant because we do have the Simba that is, you would save the Long Cane Zeus to do like a 5 damage to maybe a Daisy Duck. I'm not too sure if that feels great trading anyways, but having the Simba as your location removal or item removal is pretty great. And then on to Emerald Amber. I have 2 Emerald Amber decks actually. This one is an aggro take. I know, aggro basically kind of missing in this format, but this one ended up kind of making its way through. I haven't really talked too much about aggro except I think maybe 2 weeks ago where we had an aggro list. But this here is just an all gas kind of deck. We see blue in here and Daisy Duck for the emerald, or I mean for the amber side. But for emerald we have Hey, the what's it called, Bumbling Rooster, I think that's what the text is. And this card is also great, especially when you're on the draw. That really kind of gives you an ability to ramp up. And like if you go first, inking this card is like, because you need cards to ink, especially with this deck, but it's so low to the ground. But I think this list is actually a pretty interesting take for the aggro. We have Kick Cloud Kicker to kind of counter the mirror aggro, I would say. And then we have Hey for like when you go on the draw, going second. And Rapunzel in here, I'm not too sure how I like Rapunzel in aggro list, but that being Daisy Duck and Ursula are the 3-stat bodies. Anything with a 3-stat body, it's something to consider. You can essentially get 2 draws with the Rapunzel, and that's still pretty good. Or even at the top end, as your opponent tries to knock out Clarabelle over multiple turns, they get really punished because of the Rapunzel. But a good player won't really set you up for that. So anytime that you see a Clarabelle on the board, try to go for 1 go just in case. And don't worry if there's something that's really big statted as far as willpower goes. The Queen and the Shift line is available to basically help give support to a character to then trade upwards, maybe even with the lower stat line characters. And also playing the 2 Chernobog, the 2 Chernobogs, the 10 drop, but for every character in your discard, it becomes cheaper by 1. So I do like this card as a 2 of in some list. I think this is a great one because your bodies are basically going to they're always, it's really hard to keep aggro cards on the board, and when they stick, they stick. But this is like basically the end game backup plan, for lack of a better terms. So another Amber Emerald list we have here is the Sing Together list. So this is more familiar like with the whole Under the Sea and the Kidda, Protector of Atlantis. We got the Muses and Prince John. So this is more on par with making your opponent discard a bunch of cards and then board wiping them with Under the Sea. So nothing really too crazy to talk about here. This is pretty standard as far as that goes. That's why I took a little bit more time talking about the aggro list, because that's more unique for that color combination, but this is kind of like the standard. So crazy to me that people are playing 3 Painting the Roses Red. This card says -1 strength, and then draw a card. It replaces itself. I feel like this is just kind of like a consistency card in disguise, where you can just like go ahead and even play it and it replaces itself. Sure, it costs 2 ink, but it's also singable, so that's pretty good. You can sing it with Sir Hiss and or like Shift Diablo or Ursula Deceiver. So I mean, like, great card. Maybe it's just valuing different cards here. I don't know. I won't get too deep into it. Moving on, though, we're going to talk about Amethyst Steel. So Amethyst Steel, this one is a more anti-aggro kind of strategy that has like really great questers, but also kind of playing a little bit lower to the ground aggro strategy with Maleficent, the 1 drop for the quest for 2. So great. I mean, this is just really good purple stuff. Also respects the item matchup with Benja. And Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom as a 3 of. I would personally prefer to play 4 copies with this one. And I mean, this card just can suddenly surprise your opponent. It's like, it's better than Goat in the sense of like, it's like a, well, my opponent, as long as they don't have double Goat, this is double Goat. For you play, you gain 2 lore. Kind of simple. But anyways, I'm seeing a 5 location as well to this list. Like I said in my previous video when I was playing Amethyst, I was on a 3-3 split. But after more playtesting, I feel like a 5 total is pretty solid, especially for an aggro strategy. And you want to kind of efficiently try to keep bouncing stuff. This list also playing 3 Merlin Crab. This, like I was saying earlier, that Merlin Crab is a really great card for this format that kind of helps trade efficiently. And this deck seems to be pretty solid versus the aggro mirror, and also seems to be enough gas to kind of take those control decks by surprise and kind of clear games. And then I think that is the last list. So if you guys did enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you again to all my supporters. Please consider joining my Discord, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out of here.